grateful for that opportunity. It gave me a lot of time, honestly. So what did I do with my time? I was a research assistant in a cognitive science lab for Dr. Calvillo. I worked with Dr. Titzer, who is the creator of Your Baby Can Learn and Your Child Can Read. And I also have a part-time job at Orange Theory Fitness and Speculum. But during undergrad, whenever people would hear that I didn't have a job at the time, the first thing they would tell me is, "You're so lucky." And then they would continue to tell me all the terrible things that were going on at their place of work. They hated their boss, they hated their job, and I mean, all through undergrad, I was just hearing all these terrible stories of the workplace. And before I even had my first job, I was terrified of it because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna hate my job, I'm gonna hate my boss. And just this life for everybody. So then I took my first private class. And that's when I really had a shift in my mentality. You know, you don't have to hate your job, you can actually have a job where you kind of form this union between your boss and the employees, and you can help people be better at their jobs and feel good about their jobs and the work they're doing. And this was just a really crazy concept to me, going from everyone hates their jobs to that doesn't have to be the case. It was really interesting. So really, I just stumbled into IO. I don't have this crazy story of my experiences that led me here in other jobs. It just, I found it, and everything I learned about it after was interesting, and I wanted to know more. So I did want to make a note that last week I was really inspired by all of your guys' elevator pitches, hearing your experiences and your stories and how you guys want to incorporate IO into the real world was just very inspiring. So I wanted to thank you guys for that and say that over these next couple of years, I hope to talk to each and every one of you about your experiences, the good and the bad, and hopefully we can just learn and grow together. Thank you.
A little too dark.
Yes. Maybe just
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that's better. That's good. I like that.
I'm good to know it.
Yeah, I don't know you there.
Really? That's so weird. Do you know custodian? I think my sister does. Yeah, that's my mom. She has great yogurt. Thank you. I agree.
Yo.
Presentation mode already?
Yeah. So hello everyone, my name is Cindy Yushin Yushin with a I, and you can just call me Cindy. So a little bit of my background. I am from Thailand, but I was actually born in China when I grew up there. And I came to New York when I was 15. Then for my first 2 year of college, I went to Colorado. I stayed there. But I didn't like it. It was a bit too cold for me. So I came to UCR, graduated, bachelor, and then here I am. Super cute. And something about me. See at the top, this is some of my paintings, and I also love traveling. And here's two of my cats, Piggy and So for my job, it's okay. There's one more. So as you can see, I'm an animal lover. So I thought that I want to pursue veterinary medicine back in high school. But then I met a friend. She introduced me to psychology. And that's when I learned, oh, okay, psychology is something just about theory, but you can apply it in real life. That's why I choose that. For job experience, I used to work in like a phone company, customer service. Most of my job was like inputting data, front desk, reading customer, and like translation. There's also another job I didn't put up here. Is when I was working for helping out at a restaurant. It was kind of bad experience. It was tiring, low pay, But yeah, it got me thinking like, oh, what if I were the manager of this restaurant, what would I do better? Or like, how would I let my employee be happier? And that's just got me thinking and want to learn more. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's go.
I don't have a presentation. Hi everyone, my name is Yanni Harvey, and I aspire to be an IO psychologist in the accounting industry. I've worked in the accounting industry, in public accounting specifically, for the past 3 years. And for those of you that may not know a little bit about public accounting, a big part of our job is busy season. And busy season falls between January and April of the year due to like bank deadlines and different governmental deadlines. And essentially, because those deadlines are so strong, it means that we have to work a lot of hours. 50 to 60 hours on the weekends. It was a lot. Straight out of college, I was working that many hours, and I was seeing my coworkers that had been there for, 2 to 3 years, just like losing their minds. Like just like the extents that they would go to like stay awake and like finish their work. And the things I saw in some of those accounting rooms, so, like how they were staying awake was questionable, like at best, But luckily for me, I ended up to be on a team that just like really, like my manager just like fostered such an amazing team environment. She knew how to cater to each of one of us individually without being overly like favoritism. Like there was no favoritism. It was like she pulled out the best of each one of us and like really knew how to foster a team. And I would then talk to some of my like other peers that graduated at the same time as me, or like my other coworkers at the firm, and they were like, no, that's not how it is. My manager is lost, like does not know how to manage a team. And I think that's like kind of the theme in accounting. You kind of just like grow up based off your like experience level, but you're not taught how to be a manager. And I think that's like really important, like understanding the different emotional intelligences of like people. But anyway, for me personally, accounting was like it was fine, and like being on that team like made it worth it, which is probably why it lasted so long. But many people only last like 1 to 2 years because that just environment again is like not sustainable. And then the pandemic hit, and all my favorite parts of the job kind of got taken away from me. Having to work from home, not being able to see my coworkers anymore. Meetings, they were like, oh, we have too many Zoom meetings, so now like every meeting is just like only work related. There was no like, hi, how are you? Like they didn't care. That wasn't important to me, and I kind of saw myself falling into that category of my other coworkers that were just like losing their minds, and I was like, this isn't it for me. Like I think I need to move on from here. I was talking to my friend, and she just happens to be a school psychologist, and she brought up the concept of IO from her classes that she had taken in undergrad, and she was like, that kind of sounds like what you're talking about, like that importance of fostering relationships in the workplace and inspiring employees to know how to like understand like the psychology side of individuals in the business aspect. And I was like, wow, okay, like then maybe I can then take that knowledge and bring it into the accounting industry where like that is just like not heard of, or it's just like kind of accepted. Like you work this many hours and like you're gonna get burnt out, and like it is what it is, and it's like they tell you that like in undergrad, like that it's gonna be hard. So that's kind of my goal and like what brought me here today. I am very nervous about the program in general, just because I have an accounting background and I know nothing about research. I did not do this in undergrad, so I'm so excited, I guess, to connect with all of you, with all of your amazing backgrounds. I know a lot of you guys do have a psychology background, and I can't wait to learn that from you and be able to kind of like mesh the two worlds, which is exactly what we're doing in this program. And I think like maybe me having that like more business background is going to really help me foster my future here. And like I don't want to be tied down to the accounting industry, and maybe through our conversations and through our journey here, I may be inspired to do something else. And I want you guys to challenge me with that, to not get kind of like caught into this like bubble of accounting and everything. But yeah, I'm really excited for this program, and I can't wait to learn with all of you. And yeah, thanks for listening to me.
My name's Stasia, so a little bit about me. My first name, not something that you hear a lot. I'm Armenian, so my name originated from that. Both my parents are Armenian, so I'm a little kindred. Don't know if we'll keep it that way, but we'll see where it goes. Fun fact, my name does mean cinnamon. If you translate it to Spanish, and it's canela. So yeah. I am this is my first year, first generation grad student. So I just graduated from Cal State San Bernardino last spring of 21, in this spring. Yeah, first generation college student, first generation on my dad's side. He was born in Baghdad, Iraq. And then my mom's side, they were from Uruguay, Argentina. So I'm second generation from her side. So there's like a lot of different countries. But yeah, so I graduated with this degree in psychology with a minor in industrial organizational psychology from there. And then quickly came over here. And then just what I like to do. So just moved into my first apartment for the first time. So I'm very excited. Officially broke. It's great. Eating just mac and cheese and Oreos, but I'm on my own. I do have a dog. I have a 16-year-old Chihuahua, so she's been with me for a while. Bless her soul, she's like my little toddler. She doesn't sit still has energy up the roof, but she's super sweet to me. She barks at everyone else. For work, I help everyone with some issue that everyone struggles with. Hangriness. So I work at Jersey Mike's. So I know it's expensive. Here's a life hack. Work there. You don't have to pay for anything. So I'm an assistant manager over there. I just got promoted about a month ago. So I'm really happy about that. And then right now for IO, weird story how I got involved in IO. My freshman year of high school, I was told to write a research paper about what I wanted to be when I grew up, or maybe what I wanted to major in. Knew I wanted to do psychology, but knew that I didn't want to listen to people's issues. So I knew that I didn't want to go to clinical. Went on the computer with my mom, researched different fields of psychology, read the little summary of IO at 13, 14, said, yep, that looks cool. Stuck with it ever since. I just haven't thought of anything else that I saw myself doing. I've always sort of liked working with employees. I feel like I do somewhat of the same at my job now. We're a little bit understaffed, so I've been kind of helping my manager look at resumes and kind of start hiring people. So that's been kind of a cool way that I can somewhat integrate my major and like what I want to do and kind of see if that's something I actually want to do with IO. Other fun facts, I am into musicals too. So I feel you. Just jamming out to like Legally Blonde music all my way over here. Also obsessed with Disneyland. Can't really afford it, but if I could, I would go. And yeah, I'm just excited about this program. A little bit nervous just because obviously this isn't something that I've ever done before. Not huge on the nighttime classes. I am a morning person, so I'll be up at like 6 o'clock doing something, walking my dog. I'm that crazy old lady on the street that's just like walking her dog at 6 in the morning, and then I get home and I'm just tired. And so, but yeah, I'm excited to kind of learn more, kind of see what other areas of psychology I'm interested in. Like I said, and like other people said, kind of just all learn together. Maybe we'll go through the struggle bus together. Might as well go through it together than alone. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Gatia.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Well, hey, everybody. Mark Peterson. So, I guess to start out, I was born in Michigan, grew up there all the way through college, and then way back in 1997, got my bachelor's degree. Kicked around for another year after graduation, doing some temping, and then I got an opportunity for a job with the University of Wisconsin, their system campuses, and they actually flew me across the lake, interviewed me, and flew me back on the same day, which I thought was really cool as, about a 24-year-old. I hope you guys get that experience someday. I don't know if that's really what they do anymore, but that was pretty cool. So I started for the UW system, developing online courses and helping the instructional designers to write online college courses, undergrad level, pretty much everything, liberal arts, math, philosophy, music, whatever there was. There was even a dance course, which I didn't help develop, but when my coworkers did, they had the little thing you lay out on the floor and do the steps and all that. So I don't know if I would have liked taking dance online, but some people did it. Went from the university over to the technical college system there in Madison, and did a few more years there, essentially the same type of work. But again, just a different field, more vocational education. One of the fantastic things there at that school was after about 3 weeks into the semester, their culinary arts program would start serving in the cafeteria. And you could go and get, lobster bisque and steak tartare and things like that for $5 at lunch. That was awesome. Stayed there for a few years, and in the meantime, met my wife. She was finishing up her doctorate at the university, and we connected. We actually met online, which back at that time seemed a little odd. Maybe these days it's more common, but it was kind of neat because after having connected in that way, we discovered we had a lot of family connections that we didn't really know about. She has family that went to high school with my parents. Her mom taught piano to my cousins when they were kids back in the day, all kinds of crazy things.
Wow.
So it was a little easier to make a connection. When she graduated with her doctorate, she had interest from 2 schools. One was Northern Michigan University, way up in UP. I would have been happy there, freezing cold winters, but she grew up out here. So she was a little more interested in this other school neither of us had ever heard of, called California Baptist University. So if any of you guys had Dr. Veltman for any English classes, you know her, please don't take it out on me. But yes, she's been teaching here since 2005. I, of course, came out here with her, and my career went from academics into corporate training. So I worked for Boeing for a little bit, then for a healthcare company down in Orange County, doing some technical writing for Boeing, and then employee training for healthcare. And then for about the past 10 years, I've been with Southern California Edison, been in charge of their transmission lineman apprenticeship program. I say in charge of the program, that basically means maintaining the curriculum. I don't have to do the scheduling or any of the training delivery or any of that, and that's the way I like it. But it's been a good experience all the way through. I've had a lot of varied experiences, which I just like learning the things that I'm training other people to do. One of the best parts, I think, of several of the jobs I've had is the opportunity to go out on a ride along with, say, somebody who's delivering medical supplies to people's homes, or now like the lineman or even a meter reader. If you ever get the chance in your work to go with somebody who's actually going out into the customer-facing roles, do that. Even one day, and it'll give you a totally new perspective on what they go through. You gain a lot of respect for what they have to deal with. And I think they appreciate it when somebody from HR or corporate or wherever you might be takes an interest in them too. Personally, I know we have some shared interests in here. Board games. All right, I'm there with you. Next summer, game night at my house. It's not
Let's do it. Yes.
Yeah, definitely like to read. And I know somebody mentioned hockey. I don't remember who it was, but definitely a hockey fan. And Amar, sorry, I grew up in a Wolverine household, so we can still work together on our consulting project. My birth announcements actually announced that I was born in the 3rd quarter of the Michigan-Ohio State football game. I come by that honestly. Anyway, we're all here to learn from each other as well as from our professors. So I know I'm going to learn from you guys, and I hope I can reciprocate. So if there's ever anything I can tell you about the work that I've just described or the places where I've been, I hope you'll ask. And if nothing else, I can at least give you one honest answer to the question of what can you do with BA in English? Might end up right here. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Cassandra Ochoa. It's a lot to see all of your faces at once, but I want to talk to you guys about my why and how I ended up in this space with everybody as well. So growing up, thinking about my future, thinking about what I aspired to be in my career path, I knew that I did not want to work in an office space. And joke's on me because I currently work in an office space. I really wanted to be a professional dancer, and that was my business. But I started my undergraduate degree. I understood that I was no longer able to kind of pursue that passion and do psychology at the same time. So I went to Cal State San Bernardino. I studied psychology, and I felt like I was flailing my arms around, trying to find a focus, trying to find a niche that I would grasp onto and an interest that I'm looking towards. So my next step was to go find a job, any entry-level job that I could possibly grasp onto, data entry, customer service, and I found an HR assistant job right down the street from my house. It was per diem, worked really well with my schedule. And so in the interview, my now vice president of HR asked me what I was passionate about. And during my undergrad, I'm really not asking myself, what am I passionate about? I'm thinking about what is going to make me the most money? How quickly can I get out of this place? That wasn't really my focus. And so I quickly, right off the bat, said, I want to make a positive impact. I want to be able to instill change and be proud of the work that I want to do in the future. And she immediately said, maybe you should look into organizational psychology. And I was so excited. I went back home. She gave me the job after I was so excited, got the job. I went back home, started researching how I could fit my HR job now. Even though I'm an assistant, I'm filing for 4 months, not really doing much work, and how I can blend that with IO. And so I find IO during my research, get so excited, and I really am excited to try to make that change. I think within my current roles, even just during my undergrad, you kind of walk through life, but you want to walk through life with a purpose, and that's my main goal in life. And so I do like to say I am a baker, and the way that baking makes people feel is the way I want my career to feel. It's the best thing to go into work on a Monday morning, make a French loaf, and everybody gets so excited that the French loaf is there because no one brought breakfast, things like that. So that's the kind of reaction and ability or reaction that I want out of people when starting my career. But thank you for all of your time. I'm so excited. I'm also very nervous, as everybody else said, but I'm trying to introduce myself to everybody individually as much as possible. But if not, and you see me passing by, I will say hi. So yeah, so thank you for your time.
Good evening, everyone. My name, as my shirt says, we can't see it probably, is Brittany Kingstar. So I'll start with why I'm here. I'm not in the IO program. I am at Cal Baptist, but I'm in the PhD in Leadership Studies program. So that's a new program that started in fall 2019, so I'm in the first cohort. Hopefully we will be walking across that graduation stage this summer because it has been 100 times more intense than I ever expected it to be. So in that program, we have to do a couple of elective courses. So I have my bachelor's degree in psychology, and one of my favorite classes at the upper division level was IO.
So I figured this would be a nice refreshing course and more applicable to the workplace, wherever that is, and a break from theory and philosophy and theory and philosophy and theory and philosophy. So I really am excited to be here. A little bit more about my history. So I'm a Coyote alumni as well. I know there's a lot of you guys out here. I got my undergrad degree probably when most of you were in elementary school. But I'm still younger than Dr. Fuller. That makes me feel a little bit better. After my psych degree, I went to University of Redlands and I got my counseling degree for school counseling. And then most of my adult life, or pretty much all of it, I've been working in higher education in some capacity. So I started in research and doing institutional research. And then I'm also doing counseling. I worked at 2 community colleges. I worked at Loma Linda University School of Medicine for about 2 years. I did a small stint at UC Irvine as an application reader. I'm currently, again, small, but I'm currently with Hannah, who's not here, at Norco College. So that is a community college. It's part of the Riverside Community College District. I've been there since January of 2018. My official title there is STEM counselor / there's a slash there. STEM counselor / assistant professor. So I have 2 roles in that position. One is meeting with students, usually on an individual basis, to do career counseling, academic counseling, and personal counseling. These are really clear goals. And then the second component is actually teaching guidance courses. So I've taught several different types of guidance courses, including a lot of workshops and classes where we talk about SMART goals. So that's why I was asking you last week about the difference between OKRs and SMART goals. But we're really trying to help students at the onset of their higher education journey, making sure they're going down a path that's going to sustain them. Not financially, because like you mentioned, most people in college are just, that's like the first thing they're thinking about is how much is this job going to get me? But taking a lot of other factors into consideration, like values, the skills they've already attained, stuff like that. My favorite class and my favorite population to work with is actually transfer-bound students. So, since I'm the STEM counselor, I work 100% with transfer students because you pretty much need a bachelor's degree to work in most STEM fields. But I'm also an alumni of 2 community colleges. So I grew up in a single parent family. I had no financial support, no emotional support for that matter. And so I really do believe in the mission of the California Community Colleges and the students we serve. I'm very passionate about that. So I'm not sure if I ever see myself leaving the community college setting. If I do, the only thing that I'm interested in right now would probably be higher education policy and improving higher education policy, getting involved at the state level. That's kind of what my dissertation is focused on. So for the personal side, this October, I've been married 18 years. I got married way too young. So I got married actually while I was still my undergrad. So if any of you are thinking about it, you want some advice, come talk to me. I have lots of advice to give about getting married. I'm getting very young. We have 2 kids. I have a 12-year-old son in 7th grade, 11-year-old daughter in 6th grade. We have 2 fur babies, 2 dogs that we love and rescue. I always say I grew up bi-coastally because I was born in Maryland, but my mom was a single mom. We moved to California when I was like 1, but since she was a single mom, she always had like 2 or 3 jobs at a time. So every summer, she would ship me off to my grandparents in Maryland. So that was nice because when I was like 9, they got a beach house. So every summer I got to hang out at the, well, they call it the shore. On the East Coast, they don't call it the beach, they call it the shore. But got to hang out there and then come back. So I think those experiences from a very young age of going back and forth and flying to different places, that is where my passion for traveling kind of got sparked. So I love traveling. I've been not to all 50 states, that's not really a goal, but I've been a lot in the US. Any form of traveling, planes, trains, automobiles, road trips are awesome, boats. And we've been instilling that in our kids, and that's one of the reasons that I chose to go into education. And I kind of pushed my husband, like, you should become an educator so we can have summers off and all the other awesome times off. So when we do have kids, we can have that extra time with our family. So they got to go a lot of places in their young, short lives. But we recently purchased a 20-acre farm in the Pacific Northwest. So our traveling adventures are probably going to decrease, and we'll probably be spending more time with that property. They have very little personal free time, but aside from traveling, like the only thing I like to do for myself or try to make time for is yoga. So that helps keep me centered, and it's a good kind of exercise. So I haven't heard anyone else out there say they like yoga yet, but if so, I would recommend my studio. And I'll stop there. Thank you. Okay.
Your recommendation, maybe we should have a list. Then you'll have everybody less nervous. My name is Judy, and since it came up on the first thing we're doing roll call, I thought it would be interesting to address that my legal name is actually my Chinese name. And I just have to say, I think Dr. Fuller's roll call is one of my favorites. I thought it was pretty funny that you just asked for an alias, because I guess you're used to there's so many aliases. Because usually what happens is that my professor will, very awkwardly yell out, Chen Ti Huan. And then, or if they're trying really hard, it's Chun Ti Huan. And that's already like super impressive. But I'm like, that's great. But then they always want to know how close they got. And then it's really funny because what most people don't know is that Chinese is actually a tonal language, which means that every word has its own tone. So if you don't know what tone is for that word, you're not going to know how to pronounce it correctly. And there's no way you would know that my name is pronounced Huang, Chu, Di, and yes, in those tones. So, and so usually by that time, about 5 seconds have passed where I'm like furiously trying to figure out how to explain the elementary Chinese. and then so I will say, that was great. I go by Judy. And it's actually, the funny thing is, the reason why my name is Judy is because it's meant to be a transliteration of my Chinese name, meaning that it's supposed to sound like my Chinese name. That and my mom thought it would be easy to spell. So now that you will probably never forget my name and how I got my little old lady name, I give you a little bit of self-introduction. I came to America when I was 3. So I am technically a first-generation immigrant, except at this point, my Chinese is like my second language. So it's like, it's a little bit ironic that I just spent last minute talking about my Chinese name. And also that my parents weren't actually like stereotypical Asian parents, like you can be anything you want as long as a doctor, lawyer, or an engineer, right? But no, actually, they were very encouraging of, go find your calling. And funnily enough, I decided I wanted to be a medical doctor. So Asian parents take notes. This is how you reverse psychology your kids into wanting to be a doctor. And I was like, I'm going to be a surgeon. And so I was actually pretty serious about that for a while. I actually went and did like about 4 years. I was doing this hospital internship program called Clinical Care Extenders. I believe they're currently called Health Scholars. But it's a great program. I basically rotated through 3 different hospitals and volunteered through different floors, and you got to work alongside the people in different departments and basically shadow them and get hands-on experience, and it was really awesome. And so during that time, a lot of my courses were like pre-med related stuff, as in like anatomy and chemistry. And like I studied really hard, but then for some reason, like the whole time during that time in my life, I felt like I was like swimming against the current. Kind of, it just didn't quite fit. And several times it happened during that time period. Every time I needed a job, I prayed for a job, and God would lead me, towards something, and I knew I was supposed to be there. It was always a tutoring job. And I just remember asking God, help me out here. I'm trying to be a doctor. and why am I always in a tutoring job? And remember calling, not a career, right? I'm trying to learn the skill set so I can serve people, right? I mean, I was trying to do it for you. And basically through several different confirmations, which I won't get into just for the sake of time. Spending that time to pray about it, basically he was, God was telling me, I never asked you to be a doctor. And And so I changed my major and I transferred to Lake Pacific University where I majored in human development and psychology, and I got a minor in biblical studies. And while I was there, I really just got to experience for myself that God knew me better than I knew myself, because all of my interests and my gifts and my talents made sense. And I thought that was just really cool. Like, he had been preparing me my whole life and I didn't really realize it. And now I realize, I think my calling is to, I believe why I'm in IOPsych right now is because I feel like my calling is to take this, this research on the problem solving mentality and methodology and how to bring the best out of people and how to create an environment for success, and how do I create an environment where kids are free to look for their calling and not just a career, where they can be free to really have that student-centered learning and find their passions in life. That's why I was really excited to watch that one video about that we did for, I think it was week 2 last week. We watched that video about like ending average, and he talked about bringing that into education. I was like, that's what I want. And that's literally what I want to do. So that's, I think it's kind of like, it's cool. So this is like a milestone too, coming here. And I really like that it fit right into CPU's slogan or mission statement. I'm really not sure what it's called, but live your purpose. I really truly believe that we all have a purpose, and live your purpose. And so this is, I'm excited to see like what God has prepared for me to discover here. And that's
Alright, so my name is Jesse. So a bit about me, I was born in Chicago. I was raised there until my middle school years. Then I graduated from San Antonio High School in San Bernardino. So then after that I went to San Bernardino Valley College and I got my associate's degree. Then I went to, sorry, I haven't been up here in a while, so. Alright, so I got my bachelor's in psychology from Poly Pomona, and so what led me here was pretty much interest in building organizations. I've never really heard about this program before, and so I started doing more research in psychology. So once I did more research, it just made sense that I would be a great fit for this program. So here I am, and I'm grateful to be here, and I hope to work with each one of you and learn from you, and yeah, it's pretty much it. Thank you.
Hi everybody, good evening. My name is Carlia, and I got my undergrad at Fresno State with psychology. And that's how I started off. And once I graduated, I went into tutoring. I volunteered at a place called Grandma's House. And there I worked with students that were at risk from the grades of kindergarten to 8. And then I found employment as an behavioral technician at Autism Learning Department. And during the pandemic, I had to go and I got called up to be an ambassador for Grandma's House, the previous place I was volunteering. And when I was there, I was working with the organization, trying to find grants, creating, and also being a part of fundraising. We also checked on progressing and what we were implementing on students was actually working, all the legalities and stuff. And a bit about myself. I was actually born in Belle Fleur, California. Growing up when I was younger, I lived in Long Beach, and then I moved to Tulare, a small town, nothing but cows. So you either run into cars or cows. It smells like manure most of the time in the mornings. So if you like bring something smelly, I won't smell it. But if I can smell it, it's because it's really But aside from all that, growing up in Long Beach, I love going kayaking, swimming, anything with water. I can swim dive. I went to Cabin Island. It's really beautiful there. You guys, it's not too far, it's just Long Beach. And then also growing up in Tulare, just 30 minutes away from Sequoia National Park. So picnicking over there, hiking, I love to hike. I did a 10-mile hike once. And me and my friends, we ran into a bear with their cubs. Oh my God. And my friend and her roommate, they're both in the army. And her roommate ran back towards us, and we're like, dude, what's going on? She's like, there's a bear right there. I'm like, yeah, but you weren't supposed to run, and you're bringing in attention. But yeah, it was so much fun. It was a 10-mile hike. We didn't bring food, we just brought
Oh.
snacks, so we were starving.
Oh.
And they were vegan, so whenever we had to go, it was hard to find food. And then, Kyle, do you guys want to hear a story, or should we end it here? No story?
Let's hear one.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah, yeah.
Story? Okay. Well, I have a kayaking story. I'll try to make it quick for you. So we were kayaking, me and my friend, the one that's in the army, of course. And we had to put on these suits. We looked like the TLC, total 90s outfit. And we got into the kayak. The first thing the guy said was, don't get near the seals. They're very territorial. That's what we did. We got near them. And then they started yelling at us. And I was like, oh my God, Joanna, Joe, let's move. And I'm tilting the boat, trying to move and roll my way. And they give you one paddle. So they give you two. So you're just like frantically moving. And she's like taking pictures. Let's go. And so we go, we leave, and she starts recording me that I'm on a rant with her, telling her everything. And then it was just really nice. Then we saw a sea otter, we saw dolphins, and a whale. Dude, don't get near the whales. They're beautiful, but when you're kayaking, they meet such huge waves that they move you with kayak. But that's good. I should go kayaking. Don't kayaking with my friends. But thank you very much for listening. I hope to get to know all of you and just see me around. Say hi.
Alright, hi everyone, so I have a PowerPoint, but instead of messing with the computer, I'm just gonna show you guys here. Sorry, you're not gonna be able to see the pictures. Okay, so my name is Catherine Vasquez, I go by Cat. And here's a little baby picture of me. Okay, so a little bit about me, I was actually born here, I was born in Orange County, but I moved to Orange County Hospital. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. Some of my interests include traveling, watching TV, movies, trying new things, anything like that. I'm a really adventurous person. So, and then here's some pictures. A fun fact about me, I'm Peruvian. So these are some pictures from my trip. This is my family and I at Machu Picchu. This is another little picture at the hotel. It's a little more selfie. And then here's a view of Cusco at night. This is Lima, which is the capital. It's actually the Capitol building, so it's really cool. This is a picture of Ica. It's a desert region, and we went sandboarding here, so it's kind of like snowboarding, but on sand. It's really cool. And yeah, so a little bit about my career goals. When I was growing up, I wanted to do many things. First, I wanted to be a chef. My mom really loves cooking, and her cooking is delicious, so maybe that's what I wanted to do with my life. But then I decided maybe I wanted to do an honest because I had braces growing up, and I just thought it was really cool. The terminology was really interesting, but that wasn't really my calling. Eventually, I thought that maybe I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, but I took a course on that in undergrad. I'm a psych major at UCI. And it wasn't really for me. I thought I was a good listener, but I think to be a clinical psychologist it takes a lot more than that, and it's really my thing. So why IO? I decided to take a course in IO as an undergrad. And a lot of the topics that I was learning about in class and reading the books, I was seeing in my own workplace. I worked in a restaurant ever since I was 16. So I saw a lot of the managerial issues in my own life, and I thought, wow, if I could get the chance to fix it, then I would love to do that. I saw, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of my coworkers quit their job. People would come in, they would get hired, work for a month or two, and then leave. And management really didn't see it as a problem. They all attributed it to individual factors, and they didn't really acknowledge that maybe the management style, there different factors in the workplace were making people leave, and they were like, oh, well, whatever. It doesn't matter, but it did matter because people were unhappy. A lot of the older coworkers that I had, they would work 2, 3 jobs, and they were kind of stuck there. And so I thought maybe if I could create a better place for them to feel comfortable, then I'd love to get to do that. So that's what I did, and that's all.
Okay, so I'm probably one of the only people that have notes on my own life. But, so my name is Lee Roberts. I actually went to my undergrad at Cal State University, Channel Islands, so pretty far. Yes, I saw your mask. But I went there, and from there, I studied psychology, but I did not know what I wanted to specialize in. So I was talking to a professor, and he had a research opportunity, and it was developmental psychology, but working with bird eggs. And I was like, okay, that sounds different. I'm gonna try it. So I was like, developmental psychology is something that I was interested in. And then after doing it, I loved the project, but I was like, I don't think developmental psychology is for me. So I was talking to him, and he told me to look into IO because I wanted to change my major to business. And he goes, no, don't do that. Just look into IO and see if it's of interest. So I did that. And while I was looking into IO, I asked my uncle, because he is a founder of charter schools. I'm like, is there anything I could do like HR related or something of the sort? So he got me like an internship position with his charter schools in Ontario. And I'm currently there. And I've been there for a little over 2 years, and I loved it. So from there, he told me just keep looking into IO, and he recommended me go to Claremont. So I applied to Claremont Graduate University. I went there for a year, and I just didn't like it. I didn't want to do HR management. I liked HR, but I didn't want to study it. It wasn't exactly what I wanted. So against what my family believes, because I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, but I'm marrying into a very Christian family. So I was like, let's see. Like, I want to see if following like the spirituality that they're teaching me is what I like, is what I feel. Because my mom was baptized in a Christian, and I've always been raised with both. So I told my future in-laws that I was going to go to CPU. And my future sister-in-law, this was her dream school. She wanted to come here, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So decided to come here, found the program, and I started asking my workplace, like, what can I do with this? And they started putting me in different positions. So I'm currently an HR intern, but I do a lot of accounting and just odds and ends of charter school. And just having all those little experiences in HR, I realized that this is what I want to do. So I feel like I finally found my calling, I suppose. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
So I'm actually presenting on content. So if someone wants to do their elevator pitch on this, hi everyone, my name is Jun Shan, and my name is Tai. You mentioned that there's Tong in Chinese, so actually I'm also confused about how to pronounce my name in English, so
It's okay, you can call whatever you want. So, I'm from Taiwan, and let me give you some basic information about Taiwan. It's a country, and it's an island next to China, and below Japan. So, some company or brand that you might know that's from Taiwan is, Acer, ASUS, and Giant, the bicycle, and also TSMC, the semiconductor technology. And also some food, boba tea from Taiwan. I love it. And also Din Tai Fung, the restaurant famous for shawarma. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So I graduated from Zhongshan Medical University in Taiwan, and my major is psychology as well. So to be a medical student, most of our courses are inclined to be clinical, medical. So because of that, we had a chance to really go to hospital and see how clinical psychology work in the hospital system in Taiwan. And because of that chance, I have to say I really think that we have that chance because I know that I don't want to lose. So and then I know biopsychology. It's a combination of psychology and business. And also my parents run the business in Taiwan, and I know that they're not happy. They tell me something about their work and it's all negative. So I start to think that, maybe I can combine the interest of mine and how it's gonna help my parents with their situation. So I know biopsychology is this. Yeah. So I applied for CPU, the graduate program, and I'm here to speak a little bit.
Oh. Yay.
I don't know what the process is, or am I getting reviewed at the same time? I don't know if everyone else is pulled that up or start right away.
Yeah, everyone should at some point. You can do it on your phone or on a computer, that's fine. But it's helpful to have something available so that you can give feedback through the Google Sheet. And whenever you're ready, you can start.
Okay, awesome. Hello everyone, my name is Amy Tran. It's great to be in front of you all again. A little bit nervous right now, one first up on the test for this, but I'll go ahead and start. So with our readings this week, there's been many different areas of development within our field. As we all know, our field is relatively young. And over the years, our field has grown in areas from just focusing on retention and acquisition of staff, looking at other things. And one of the things that I wanted to really highlight that stood out to me during this week's meeting is the trend towards worker well-being. And worker well-being looks at the employee not just in the work setting, but also outside of work, at home. And that could include mental health, physical health, and even financial health. So to kind of highlight more about that and provide some more examples of what that looks like, I actually have a short video I wanted to show that talks about worker health. It's this thing called Total Worker Health, and it's actually recommended by the CDC as well. But just as a side note, this video is from a workers' comp, so it's a little cited on that, but we do touch on it. I hope the audio.
You've probably heard that regular exercise can strengthen bones and muscles and improve your overall health. But did you know it also enhances mood and even reduces the risk of some cancers? Exercise improves the workplace too. Physically active employees are less likely to get sick or miss work. They're less prone to strains and sprains and other injuries, and they're more alert and engaged. Employers can support employees who want to be more physically active. Wellness experts suggest that you map safe local walking routes, support walking meetings, promote the use of stairs, encourage walking and bicycling by providing a place to shower, change, and bike storage, offer voluntary on-site exercise classes, subsidize gym memberships, or encourage employees who join athletic teams or events. Hold pre-shift warm-ups. Share employee success stories. More physical activity equals better health, which is also good for business. People want to work for someone who cares about their health and well-being. So, making exercise easier can mean higher employee retention and attendance, better productivity and customer service, and lower insurance rates and healthcare costs. And there's one other benefit: healthier, happier, and safer employees.
So definitely quite a few examples that they touched on in this video, specifically more on physical health and then also in regards to mental health. And the one that's most exciting to me was definitely the walking meetings. I've actually had experience with that. And to also demonstrate how quickly workers will be that is trending and developing in our field. And pulled this from 2020 Workplace Trends from SIOP. For those of you, you probably all know, but SIOP stands for Society of Industrial Organizational Psychologists. And with this one, workplace trend, what they did was since 2014, they sent out a survey to all of their members asking what's going on in the field. I didn't go as far back as 2014 because I realized that I didn't have to go that far back to really demonstrate how quickly this is trending. So since last year, you can see it's number 8, and especially in 2020, we had a lot of gig economy and Uber that is doing things, and a lot of things related to technology as well. But if we look at today's, as of 2021, workplace will be number 2. So that's quite a big jump. Number 8 to number 2. I can't even do that in modern part. If I'm number 8, I'm not ready. So what I wanted to highlight was they have this recommendation on what we as biopsychologists can do in our field in relation to this. So I have it highlighted here in red, so we can work with other experts, subject experts in our field, to provide advice and design ethical and practical benefit programs and work practices that contribute to health, well-being, wellness, and safety. There's a lot there in our field in that area, especially as we as a generation of biopsychologists, we can see there's more as well. And so I actually have a short story from my own experience. I used to work at Human Options, and they're a domestic violence nonprofit. So a lot of our work can be very traumatic, it can be very stress-inducing, and you could take that home sometimes, and that can interrupt the way you live your life, and the next day when you come back to work. And I didn't realize that our HR director at the time actually was implementing the well-being for us. She started this program called Walking Club. It wasn't a club by any means, but we did want to make t-shirts at one time. And with this, what she would do is she had us go out 2 times every day, and she would perfectly timed it. So it would be after high call volume times, and then at the end of the day, it would be the last thing we would do. So she perfectly timed it so that we would take breaks with everyone as a group and just release any stressors through walking. It was great to be out in the environment, nature, just have some exercise, and we could do it as a group. And at the beginning, maybe only 1 or 2 of us did it. But then the benefits that everyone saw when we come in, we'd be happy, jovial, and we were so focused on our work. Everyone started to do it towards the end. And I really thank her for that, because a lot of the phone calls I had to answer, I would take home with me, but as soon as she implemented this program, I would go home and be able to function all day. And so with that, I'd like to do a small call to action. Wherever you guys go in life, consider working with me, whether you're working in any type of industry, whether it be technology, nonprofit, you can bring that into your work.
And that's it.
I don't know, you're busy typing away on your feedback, but if anyone wants to give audible feedback in addition to whatever you're writing, this would be the appropriate time to do that. But I'll first ask Amy, how do you feel that it went?
I really feel like I could have done better. I realized I kept using a lot of crutch words, even though I had practice. I think the nerves got to me, and there are actually a few more points that I wanted to touch on, but I ended up forgetting them. So I feel like content-wise, I didn't really connect the history of our field to the word going in this area, being celebrated tonight.
What did you do well?
Great question. I think just demonstrating the trend and being able to talk loudly, that's something I've always struggled with, so I really take kudos for talking louder than I normally do.
Good. Other feedback? Or question?
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting that you were talking about how people were walking after they got off of work, and it made it kind of easier to leave the problems of the office at the office.
I really like the layout of the presentation. It was really cute. I like the graphics and everything on the transitions. It's really nice. You tell that you put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, thank you so much for showing the different types of years of transition just in 1 year from last year to this year and how much it has grown and moved up. Thank you for that visual.
Yeah, just bouncing off of what everyone was saying. I like how you had a visual representation and also you implemented a video, which is great for someone like me. I need a visual representation. So that was amazing. I think as being someone else in the back though, I would love to, I loved listening to you, but I think if you just increased your volume just a little bit higher, I would have been able to grasp everything that you said. Other than that, everything was pretty well written out and it was easy to understand where you're
Thank you for that.
Yes.
No, you did a good job.
Normally I just give my audible feedback, but I'm gonna come up there for just a second. I don't think I've ever done it before. Amy, I think you did really well. It's dark up here though, and I know like the mouse is like here, but come over here with me. This is where we want everyone to be, right? I know it's hard because you gotta go back. Something that classes have done in the past is like they had a clicker, and like they just shared it, just put it up there, and like everyone used it. That's fine. But the other thing is like you can be a quiet person, that's okay. But I was also sitting in the back, and I would encourage people to like walk out here a little bit, right, for your presentation. And I don't know about the tech. This is all relative. This is all new, like this room this semester. So I don't know if we can get that and this to be on the same screen at the same time. I'm not sure. I think it's feasibly possible, but I don't have that skill set at the moment. Or mindset, maybe we get there. But if we can see that and not have to look back, right? Because that would be really good. Because if you're here, right, looking at the screen and talking here, it's hard for like Chad or someone to hear. So just being like here is a little bit better. Being like walking around this general area is going to be more accessible, right? Audibly, but also like visually, and try not to. This is for everyone, not just for you. But thank you for being the first. Like this is great, and like not trying to look back because that's one of the disengaging things, right? Like, and it's hard to hear, like when you're speaking. So just try to have it be something you consciously focus on. Like push yourself away from the podium. It makes you vulnerable, right? Like as a presenter, it's very vulnerable to do that. So we all respect that, right? We'll all like be cheering for you and very happy for everyone that does that and progresses to do that over the course of the semester. But push yourself to try and do that, like everybody. Like get out from behind there, be out in the room, right, together, all of us, and clicking from here, knowing what's on the screen and presenting, from that point. But great job. Like you spoke very confidently. I appreciate that. That's very good. It doesn't. No, you did so well. It sounded very comfortable. Like you didn't shake or anything like that. You could hear everyone audibly was like, yes, you're so confident, which is great. I enjoyed, like the content was really great. I did learn some new things. Great use of humor. You're very funny. I appreciate that. And I think going first is the challenge, right? It's really tough. So those are the kind of feedback things that I wrote about, but also I think we all like really benefit, right, from seeing a really good, confident presentation. Whether you think like you missed some things or not, we don't know what you didn't say. So we have no idea. Like when you say, oh, I missed this, I have no idea that you missed that. Hey, I didn't know it wasn't anything you missed on the slide. Right, everything was there. So I think you did really well. Let's give her a hand. Good job. The bar is really high.
Oh, she's beating me too.
This is an elevator pitch.
Oh, well, this is elevator pitch. Let me just get my left hand.
So hi everyone, my name is Estefania Trevino, and I want to start off by telling you a little bit about my background. I am Mexican American. My dad was born here in the US and he moved out to Mexico when he was a child. I don't know how old, but he was out in Mexico from childhood and adolescence, and then he came back to the US. My mom is also, she was born in Mexico and came to the US at 18. And she then met my dad at Ely College, and they had a romantic love story, and they had me and my brother. So my brother, he's 5 years older than I am, and he is a huge inspiration for me to continue my education. He is actually a lawyer, so he has the bar raised really high for me. But I do ask a lot of advice from him, and to see like how I can manage stress and manage anything else like discouragement and imposter syndrome, and he's a huge help. And I'm very fortunate that I have an older brother that has gone through all this, and I have a guide through all this. He encouraged me to continue my education towards my master's, and now I want to go into where I went to school. So I went to UCR, and I graduated in 2020 in psychology. And after graduating, I took a year off, and I kind of needed that time to figure myself out, see what I wanted to do. But I did have an interest in IO. I took a course of IO my junior year of undergrad, and I found it super interesting. I didn't know that actually existed. And so I just did my research, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll do that. Who knows? So I took that year off, and I got a job as a billing assistant / management assistant at a speech therapy clinic. And this company was not under construction. And I was learning all the ins and outs. I was doing front desk, I was doing billing, I was being the assistant to the manager, and I was trying to input as much feedback for the company itself to grow, but I didn't have that authority to help the company grow. So unfortunately, the company was not very well, and I left. Well, they leave me on. But I learned a lot, and that pushed me towards wanting to learn more about IO, and now I'm here, getting my master's in IO, like all of you, and I'm very thankful to be here. And now before ending my pitch, I want to tell you guys a little bit about my personality. So I would consider myself an ambivert, which is a little bit of a balance between an extrovert and an introvert. I definitely can be both, like the balance. Just depends if I've been extra stressed, haven't had enough sleep. Just depends. If you catch me on a good day, I'll be an extrovert. If not, I'll be an introvert. But that's my personality, and also, I love animals. I have a cat. He is so cute, but I am terribly allergic to him, so I just pop allergy pills and I'm good to go. But that just shows how much I love animals. And I really want a dog, but that just takes too much work for me right now, especially starting grad school. I don't know if I should do that. And also, one kind of fun fact about me is that you'll know if I'm very comfortable around you if I start speaking in a British accent. So I'll just randomly say random phrases in a British accent, and you'll just know that I'm comfortable around you. I will do that now because I'm not comfortable. But that's a little glimpse of me, and I hope you all can learn more about me this semester, and I hope to learn much more about each and every one of you this semester as well.
Now, how do I switch like PowerPoint?
Drag it.
I have it open like on the computer. This smells really difficult.
Agreed.
I see the slideshow.
It's tough.
I don't want to play it. I want to be able to pause it and control it. Yeah, which obviously so you guys, first of all, I'm gonna stand here at this desk. I will try to talk loud and make eye contact with you guys because they need to click next, and I know our professor over there does not want us to stand up and click buttons, but I will try my best to talk loud, make eye contact, and tell you guys what I got on my slide here. To give you kind of an idea, I really didn't know what to do for the presentation, so I just basically read what was in the chapters, and I'm gonna try my best to teach you guys something today, okay? So we're on developing IO. I thought that was a cool title because the reading for the most part was giving the history and the trends and some facts about IO psychology. And I thought, okay, you know what? Let me put this in a PowerPoint view. So the reading, what we got here, as I just explained to you guys, our reading summarized the history of industrial organizational psychology. It gave us a sense of identity, a guideline to follow, and showcase the trends from 1963 to 2007. That is a long time, like a really long time. I don't really mean that. Like after that, I decided to start with the first article that our professor provided for us, which was the one that you read at the beginning of class today, which was titled A Snapshot in Time, Industrial Organizational Psychology Today. But I thought these points or these bullets were the most important things what the article had to teach us about. Because as you can see, right, the purpose of the study was to identify relevant topical trends or ideas, or I want to say thoughts and knowledge that is being dedicated to the IO field. Now, to conduct this study, the writers of this paper had the question of what type of knowledge in terms of content has been added to the IO field and currently produced. That was the question they thought, that was the question they thought to get to this point. So to perform this kind of study, they used, I want to say, content analysis. And as I broke it down for you guys, am I trying to read off the board? I have it on my phone. It's a little more sense. I'm sorry about that. But here we go. So basically, the people who conducted the study, they had content analysis. Content analysis converts qualitative material into quantitative material that subsequently can be analyzed. I'm sorry about the material that can sequentially can be analyzed subject into the limitations of known level measurements. So basically it breaks down material that is qualitative and turns it into a quantitative measure, meaning that it can tell you how people feel about certain trends or topics, and then it breaks it down into like the number or rating scale. Now, what makes content analysis very well is that it provides about three things. It provides a replicable method, meaning that you can produce this type of test or study again and again. It is highly flexible and it is not intrusive. So these are the things that what they were looking for to answer the question. There were two groups within the study that were used to conduct the study. You have 15 broad topics, 50 subtopic areas divided by geographical location, affiliation, coding, meaning how they decided to break each article down, what they agree upon would be most important to the Iowa field and what wouldn't be, and lastly time blocks, meaning from 1963 to 2007. As you can see, I went into further detail breaking it down. The results were split into 4 categories. Analysis was provided to trends regarding the 15 broad topics, showcasing upward, downward trends and no change. Analysis was provided to geographic location affiliation. Analysis was provided to the 50 subcategories. And it showed that there was a correspondence between published Iowa research and major human capital trends defined by the decade, meaning that the study was able to find that there was a weird mix between Iowa research and human capital like trends. And if you guys don't know what human capital is like human resources. It throws you away because you're like, why is human resources being mixed in with IO? Some of the reading goes into further detail explaining why IO and human resources kind of match up, but that again, that's further reading. If you guys got questions, I'm more gladly answer for you, but we'll save that to the end. So that leads me to my next point, which is the name change. Since we got an idea of what the trends were like and what the research presented in the other article, that brought me to saying, well, hey, the name change is very important. IO psychology was originally known as industrial psychology only, and not until I believe 1973 the field became known as industrial organizational psychology, or IO for short. If you have tongue twisters like me, just call it IO psychology. That was, they decided to put this name change into play because the field was really growing. It wasn't just about testing and selecting and picking people for the right fit. It was more about, okay, we have, social approaches we gotta come on. We have humanistic aspects we gotta take in mind. So they thought by adding the organizational component to it, it would better help the field to grow recognition and to incorporate more people. And that brings us to the question of I or O. So the name change brought attention when they decided to add the I and O. It brought attention to everything. It divided the field. You either the I side, the O side, the dark side, or the Jedi side. What side you choose. It brought that. And honestly, I think I'm an I person because I really only know. But okay. After deciding, it brought attention in the field, a lot of IO psychologists were trying to figure out, well, where do I belong? And the question arose from all of that is, who does the field, if you guys want to read that, but who does the field of study benefit? Is it the common coworker or is it the managerial hierarchy, the higher ups? Does it benefit them or me as the common worker? Now this brought this piqued my interest because I work for Amazon. I'm also a BT, so I do both. And I see at times when people are human resource related and they say that they have people that are IO that think of the best policies or the best fit for the company, it makes me wonder who's the company, who is the IO psychologist really working for? Are they thinking about me? Do my benefits come first? Do my needs come first? Am I satisfied with this job? What are you doing to make my job better? And I thought of an interesting quote that answers that to the question of who does IO psychology serve? And it's from our reading, which is from one of the authors of High House. He says, we should not be a field that merely services organizational problems. We should not allow research programs to be dictated by rapid fluctuating economic conditions and management plans. And basically what this author is saying is we should not, as an IO psychologist, we should not cater to a big business just because they hire us and say, well, we just need to make sure all our policies are good so we don't have workers complaining. If you see a worker that is not happy being an IO psychologist, you should do everything in your power to make that worker feel better. Case in point with Amazon. There's times where we get the pulse surveys, and in the surveys, they ask you personally, has your manager spoken with you in the past month? Has your manager given you the opportunity to improve? So that lets me know an IO psychologist is doing the best of their job to make sure my job is good. Yeah. And then another policy what brings up to bring back to the second slide is that it talks about the 3 principles that we should have, which is, give me a second, let me look it up. So the 3 things we should have is central enduring attributes or central, what is that word called? I have it, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. So in IO psychology, we should have values that are central, enduring, and distinctive. And if you take that into further, like to a further idea or furthering the idea of what CEDs are, the reading gives us 2 CEDs that we should really focus on as IO psychologists. We should maintain strong connections to the psychology departments. That takes back to the whole entire experiment or practitioner, the whole entire idea that we should do everything in our power to maintain a strong connection with that. And also, oh look, it already summarized that. Strengthen the scientist practitioner model. Okay, those are the 2 CEDs that we should keep in mind. And that is my PowerPoint. If I got questions. Any feedback, Professor? Dislikes, hates? Fall asleep back there?
Nope. How do you think it went? What are your thoughts?
I could have swore I just should have wrote note cards out because I was on PowerPoint, phone, reading material, and it'd been a whole lot easier instead of writing out a card and going back and forth. But I talk too loud, let's make contact. I just want to know how y'all feel. That good? No? Ask away.
I like how you also incorporate, you were not, which is great, I agree perfectly, that one. And I like how you incorporated your personal experience. That made it so much more interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah. You don't need to apologize because we all get nervous. You speak your background, which is really good. You're an actor or something.
Thank you. I mean, it's cool. I always tell you, I don't have to see my personal emails. Let me do that.
Does anybody else have an elevator pitch? Because I got a double dose on this. I'm gonna give you an elevator pitch and a presentation. No? Cool.
I'm gonna do my elevator pitch. Hello, my name is Danielle. I didn't really grow up in a specific area because when I was growing up, my family moved around a lot. My dad was a chef, and so we moved to different states and lived in different restaurants. And then my parents got divorced, and I lived with my mom up north in a town called Modesto. And I spent there my middle school years and my high school years there. And then I came to Southern California for school. I had the opportunity to play college soccer, and I went to Providence Christian College for my first 2 years. It was a great experience. And the college was pretty small, so we didn't have majors, we just had concentration. So it's our major was liberal arts, and then we had a concentration in something. I thought that I wanted to become a lawyer. My whole life I wanted to do that. And then some things changed, and I decided, it's not for me, because I don't really like arguing, and it just goes okay. But then I was still playing soccer, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll just try and pursue my career in soccer and do all that good stuff. However, I got injured pretty badly, and I did my soccer career. And the school that I was going to, I didn't like it enough to just be going to school there and not playing for soccer for them. So I decided to transfer to CVU. My older sister graduated here, so she went to school and thought that I would like it as well. So I transferred here my junior year. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was still pretty bummed out about my injury and all this good stuff. So I was at orientation, and we had a like student helpers that like would help pick out our classes. And I wanted to graduate in 2 years, and I still didn't know what major to pick. And so she was like, well, you need a major, because if you want to graduate in 2 years, you take major classes. So I asked her, I was like, oh, what's your major? She's like, psychology. I was like, do you like it? She's like, it's cool. I'm like, all right. So that's how I got my psychology major. And then I added a marketing minor for a full minute, and I love the marketing classes. I fell in love with the business and what marketing had to offer. But I wasn't going to be able to graduate in time if I kept my marketing minor. And then Dr. Iverson came into one of our classes and talked about IO psychology, and I just was like, wow, it's best of both worlds. Psychology is pretty cool, and I love the business side. And yeah, I still really don't know what I'm doing with my life. I have no idea. So we're just here for the ride. Yeah.
So I'm gonna start with my elevator pitch, but I'm also gonna be handing out some papers for my presentation. So please don't open the papers until I ask you to. It's kind of like a little fun thing. But my name's Michael Pierce. I'll give you a little bit of my background. I'm a first generation American. My mom comes from Bolivia, so it's close to Peru. I grew up as the youngest of the first generation of cousins. So growing up, it really sucked. Everybody was going everywhere, doing like high school things, having a bunch of fun. And I was there begging to tag along, and they're like, no, we're gonna get in trouble if we bring you. So I never got to enjoy that. And then I finally got to high school where I was like, man, I really want to have a good time. I wonder what the best place to go in high school is. And all the movies all said football. I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go to football. I only weigh like $120, but I'm doing it. And so I went into football, and tall, skinny kid. They're like, okay, cool. You could be like a wide receiver, a defensive back, something like that. I was like, oh, okay, I'll trust you. But I never really connected with it. And so I kept on hopping around to the different groups, trying to figure out where I fit. And finally, one of my friends was a defensive lineman going up against these 200 plus pound, 6'1" guys, and bullied me over to come play with them so he could beat me up. And after 10 reps, I absolutely loved it. He was throwing me to the ground. I felt a lot of competition. And yet for some reason, the one time I got around him and touched the quarterback, I felt like I was a star. I was like, my little 120-pound butt is going to be running around this field as a defensive lineman. And I did that I started 4 weeks in due to one of my teammates getting an injury. And I guess I was able to take advantage of the opportunity because I just went absolutely ballistic. And I did the best I've ever done at that position. Oh, one more day. Sorry about that. That's it. And then I was earning my starting position. I was a skinniest guy playing on the defensive line, fighting my heart out to keep my spot. And I loved it. All until my junior year, I went on vacation to Bolivia to see some family down there. And do not eat meat when you go to South America within like the first 3 weeks. You will get your stomach absolutely ruined. I could not leave the bathroom for 2 straight days. It was the worst 2 days of my life. It was terrible. I went from $180, almost $190, to maybe 175. I lost a lot of weight. And I came back as the season was starting, and I was stubborn. I didn't want to lose my spot. I saw what happened to the last guy that lost their spot. They didn't get it back because of me. And so I didn't want that to happen. And so I kept on playing, even though I was way underweight for what was happening. And then on the 8th game of our season, I went in for a big hit and absolutely wrecked my shoulder. I got flattened out on my back. I try to stand up and roll over, and my left arm just didn't want to move how it was supposed to move. And I was like, oh, this is bad. So I just lay there and let them take care of me. And the doctor told me, you could go back to football, but your shoulder's probably going to pop out every year or so because you really shattered it up pretty good. And football was my little circle of happiness, so I didn't really know what to do. I was like, oh man, do I rest my shoulder over and over again? Do I lie and say I'm healthy to, possible recruiters? Or do I try to figure something else out? And I was like, oh, I guess the smart decision is figuring something else out. And so I tried to find the next cool, fun thing. I was in high school and I was just like, oh, what's the best thing that like a bunch of movies are coming out about that's super fun? It's Fast and the Furious. Everybody was like in their low riders, driving super fast. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna go work on cars. I'm gonna get into the car scene. And so my uncle owned a car business, and I thought it was the best place ever. I was able to drive cars that a 17-year-old should not be driving, way, way above what I thought I was worth, like hundreds of thousands of dollars above what I was worth. But it was the best thing ever. I was having so much fun. I got into the car community. I started doing stupid things that I shouldn't be doing in the car community. So we'll skip over that and I'll talk about it. But it was great, and I had a great work relationship. I was in heaven. Everybody was nice. Everybody joked around, but everybody helped. Until my third year of working there, my boss called me in one random morning, and he goes, Mike, you gotta start looking somewhere. I was like, what? What are you saying? Like, why are you trying to pull my chain? It's like, no, your uncle's selling the business pretty much. We're getting acquired by somebody else, someone much bigger than, family-run business. It's like, okay, so what does that have to do with me? It's like, well, they have policies. In order to drive any of these cars, in order to do anything here, you have to be at least 21 years old because you need to be under their insurance. They're only 19. I'm 21, these two. I was like, okay. All right, and there I was again. My little bubble of happiness just got popped. For the second time, I was like, oh, well, what do I do now? I didn't know what to do. I enjoyed the car scene, so I went and I worked for a dealership. And it was a small used car dealership, and when I first went there, it was kind of like my old job. Everybody was helping me out. My boss was buying me breakfast. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I love this. This place is great. And then some responsibilities started to pick up. They saw that I was a good worker, and so they asked me to do some other things. I was like, all right. And I was in Dominguez Hills at this time, so I was trying to study, finish my degree. And then it started adding up to more and more responsibilities where I was working 10-hour days, 12-hour days, because I went from all the way in Torrance, driving cars all the way out to Bakersfield and trying to come back in time. And so my work life completely took over my actual school life to the point where I forgot what my schedule was. Days were just a whole blender. And I went to class about 45 minutes late, and it was test day. I had no clue. There was 2 tests in that class, midterm final. That was midterm. And I was like, oh, damn. I just screwed myself out of my degree. Gonna have to go back and do a whole year again. I don't know what to do. And so I might as well talk to the teacher. He seemed like a pretty nice guy. I went up there and I was like, to be honest, I don't know what happened. I'm working. They're asking for a lot. I just completely screwed up and missed the test. Is there anything I could do to be able to take the test back? And I was like, okay, I'll make you a deal. You come to my office, and I'll let you retake the test tomorrow, online. Do it whenever you want. I was like, oh, awesome. Well, his name was Ara Harutunian, and Ara was a practicing IO psychologist. And I guess he saw something as, I don't know, in me or just maybe a teaching opportunity. And he said, you need to build balance. You need to build boundaries with your work and your life, or else things like this are constantly going to happen. And so I took his advice, and I let my job know that, I'm not working 12 hours anymore. I'm not working 10 hours, you're not pushing me past doing whatever you want. I'm gonna go do what I have to do outside of work. That's kind of the start of the shift. That was my junior year of college. And so I started to really invest into IO. I looked into as many programs as I could. I met Dr. Iverson. He completely sold me on CBU. And now I'm over here in this new little bubble of happiness. And I hope this one doesn't pop. And that's my elevator pitch. So can I start my presentation timer? Sure.
Anytime you're ready. Yep.
All right. Well, my name is Michael Pierce. Our reading was on developing IO. I like the word empowering more, so I went with empowering industrial organizational psychology's future, and it's a guide to keeping IOP alive. I'll explain why that is so. During our reading, it was kind of portrayed to us that IO has a lot of hurdles. There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of interior things of, ooh, does the I matter more than the O? Should we kick out the I? No, we should kick out the O. To more bigger things, such as science versus practice, keeping IO in academics, and the fact that our focus is way too narrow. That we're all just looking at one certain aspect of the whole world, really. And so the science versus practice is pretty much just, hey, we need to focus on building theories about work life, how people function at work. Whereas the practice is like, well, yeah, theories are great. They help a lot, but they're not a one-to-one connection. They don't correlate perfectly to the real world. All these theories can't help us. Plus, if we only do theories, we're going to be behind the real world. The world's changing almost every day, if not every year. And so that's a very large problem with IO. We don't know where we really want to go. We don't know if we should be on one side or the other. Another one that's kind of scary to me is keeping IO in academics. As Dr. Fuller was stating, is you have to get research out or else you're done. Most institutions have industrial organizational psychology under the psychology branch. And for most psychology programs, you have to be getting funded by the federal government. Sadly, for some reason, the research that IO does, the federal government isn't very fond of and doesn't like giving a lot of grants and funding towards. And so a lot of IO programs kind of struggle with trying to stay alive. I'm sorry for looking at my phone, but this one kind of scared me so much that I did a little outside research. According to SIOP in 1989, there were 55 IO programs. According to the U.S. education, there's 3,500 or about 3,500 degree certifying universities. So IO was about 1.5% of all degree giving universities. In 2021, SIOP says that there's 198 psychology industrial organizational programs. The U.S. education says that there's approximately 4,300 degree certifying universities. That puts IO in only 4.5% of all U.S. degree certifying institutions. That means over the past 32 years, our academics and where we are has only grown by 3%. That's 1% per decade, which is, to me, sort of frightening because other business schools who have similar things are far more accessible. Many teachers who would like to teach IO see better opportunities at a business school. They pay more. There's not the pressure of doing research to keep your job as much. And so that's another large issue. We're almost at a shortage of creating our future. And then the final one is that we're too narrow. We're too focused on helping the private consumer industry. Whereas we could be working in the education system, being educators, fixing how education is ran. I don't have to look it up. I know the US is nowhere close to being in the top 10 countries for education. It's absolutely terrible. Next is something like volunteer organizations. Organizational is literally in our name, but we don't put any resources to volunteer organizations who do a lot of good for everybody. And yeah, it doesn't pay a lot most of the time, but translating a little bit of our research, of our theories, helping volunteer organizations be a little bit more profitable, would be a great way to diversify ourselves. So reading all this, I got kind of down. I was like, man, I just committed to a 2-year program, a couple thousand, no, more than a couple thousand. And this place has all these problems, and they told me on week 3, so I'm already suckered in. The solutions they drew on the papers weren't groundbreaking, they're okay at most. And so I started thinking, what could really change things? What could fix it? And I started thinking back to orientation with Dr. Fuller and Dr. Iverson, and I realized they said something that was a lot more powerful than I think they really understood. Or maybe they did, but they were just giving us the base level of it. And so, yeah. And so with those papers in front of you, if you haven't already, go ahead and open it up.
Oh no.
So that's just a little funny clip of Kung Fu Panda, where the panda is supposed to open the scroll that has all the answers to becoming like the best Kung Fu warrior. And I know the paper I gave you isn't blank, but it's the closest thing I could to giving you a mirror, because that'd be way too expensive to pay. But the secret answer to all these issues really is you, each and every single one of you. And I know it's a little hard to understand. I know you heard it from our teachers. You. I know you heard it from our teachers. I know you've been like pushed, like, oh yeah, you guys are it. But no, honestly, I took a step back because I needed to. I was like, oh man, this kind of sucks. But you are what makes all these problems go away. Yeah, there's a difference between science and practice. But why can't we have both? If there's enough of you, I'm sure more than half of you are going to be interested in theories. I'm sure more than half of you are going to be more than interested in putting it into research. The only issue is IO has been so small that we haven't had enough people to really develop both sides. And so we resort to thinking we have to put our small resources into one pile. But if we keep on empowering each other to continue in this field, to growing, we could do both. To keep in academics, the more we empower each other and teach each other that, hey, the IO world's great, there's bound to be at least one person, like a Dr. Fuller, an amazing man like a Dr. Iverson, that invests in keeping academics going, that invests in going into the future. SciOp released a decade-long kind of early career leaders from 2001 to 2010 in our reading. And out of the 12 leaders in IO, only 4 of them were teaching at a psychology program. That's 25% of IO leaders are teaching IO, IOP to be specific. The other 75% are business schools. To be honest, we're not the same thing. And finally, in diversifying industrial organizational psychology, the one thing that's more diverse than IO's issues is us. No single one of us is from the same background. We all come from different backgrounds with different perspectives with different goals. And that's what's important. Each and one of us has something brilliant and beautiful that really matters, that really makes a change in our world. But what makes IO so special is that we all have the same underlying goal of making the workplace a better, more happier spot so that 80% of the population becomes happy like the other 20%. And by empowering each other, we build community. We've heard how Dr. Iverson says, oh yeah, all the people at SciOut, you can email them. They'll come meet with you. And that's because we're trying to empower each other. Because by helping each other succeed, we build community, and with community, we're able to face those problems that alone we'd probably be scared of. Go and take those leaps and bounds that, without some supportive background, we wouldn't want to take because it's too risky. But we keep empowering each other. We have each other to back each other up. If one wants to be a professor and they need research or else they're going to get fired, I'd love to volunteer wherever I'm working or whatever I'm doing to making sure you don't get fired. I don't know you too well, but I think y'all are pretty dope already. And if we keep on doing these great changes, these great bounds, we're bound to become great examples for the next generation. How amazing is it to think that we could be tomorrow's inspiration if we just continue to do what we love? Because all we're really doing is just opening up the rest of the world to understanding that IO is a beautiful, smart, academically proven science that helps people be happy at work, and it pays better than the other psychology jobs. So since I'm talking about empowering and everything, Dr. Iverson said a little, when I was helping a company, I did the bring him onto the stage thing. I don't know how that works, but I did do football. And I know one thing that really empowered me about my team, about feeling like one, was doing a little chant. So I know we don't really know each other and everything. I know you're all comfortable in your chairs. But I'm gonna ask you guys to please stand up. Yeah. And we're gonna meet over here in the middle. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's getting awkward. What's up, Mark? Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Come on. Alright. Yeah, squeeze on down. There's no rules over here. We're making a huddle. Alright. Okay, so there's a real simple kind of like cheer type of thing for football players, because we're always getting in the head. It's called a question and answer. I ask a question, you guys answer it as a group. There's only one rule. You have to be louder than me. If you're not, it's pretty embarrassing for me. So the simple question is, who are we? Your guys' answers are, we are IO, because we are the future. So we're just gonna do it 3 times. Sorry, Dr. Fuller, we're gonna get loud. I like it. But are we ready? Oh yeah, gotta give us up. All right. Who are we? We are IO. Who are we? We are IO. Who are we? We are IO.
Not be hitting the cheese.
Just a quick thing, real quick. My final message, remember, we're all one community, we're all one group. Just try to keep empowering each other and empower the future, bringing the next generation like the second years have done to us, doing our mentorship. And we'll make great leaps and bounds for IO. Thank you.
All right, how do you think you did, Michael?
I don't really know. I didn't see many strict guidelines, so I kind of went astray from them. I got people laughing, I got people up. So I think I did pretty well.
Yeah. What do you think specific? I mean, laughing, got people up. Anything else specifically you think you did well?
That I could do well?
That you did well.
I think I moved around well. I think I spoke loudly. I don't really know from the back. And I try to make as much like personal eye contact as possible.
Good. What would you do differently next time?
No, because I gotta go next week, so.
All right, we'll keep that a mystery. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, other feedback.
Sorry.
So I'm presenting next week and I just don't know how I'm gonna even compete with the presentation
know
that you
either.
just did. Like, I think you did really good. I love the huddles. I love like the holding of things. Like, yeah, I just think that you did a really amazing job in your presentation. You were very confident. Like, there was no ums, there was no stuttering. Like, you did a really great job.
Thank you. Or you raise your hand after.
I just wanted to say it was great and I really do feel empowered after that.
Thank you. Took a little risk with me, but thank you. Yeah.
Honestly, this felt like the whole class. Like, I learned so much. I was so entertained. I'm like, wait, I like this class. This is a presentation. So I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, James.
I thought it was really good, especially your how you addressed the material. I thought it was spot on. I do have one critique though, and that it was really long.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it was excellent.
Awesome. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I would say in response to that, yeah, just keep an eye on time. Just knowing the time constraints are there in a professional capacity. You did move around, but you want to move around without swaying too much, without like dancing around too much. You want to move, stay in a spot for a little bit longer. But I do like the movement. You did have great eye contact. You did have good jokes. Yeah, I liked the tactile kind of stuff. I liked that. That was nice. It was integrated with the PowerPoint, which is a good idea. I like to wrap it all up. There's some new information there that I thought was really nice. With the statistics, like how many universities there are and how many programs, IO programs are in them, that would have been nice to just see a representation of that. Just as
There
a
wasn't like an actual like representation.
You
There was
could-
just like numbers, and so I kind of
Yeah,
just
yeah.
calculated on my phone.
Sure. No, I just mean as a pie chart, right?
Okay.
You could do that easily on a PowerPoint. It's hard for audiences to hold numbers in their head like that and to see like the magnitude of the effect you're talking about. See that it's this 1.5%, dominance in universities and higher education, and now it's increased to 4.5, but that's still a negligible number compared to what is available. Right, like that, we're missing a lot of opportunity there, and so I liked the data, the statistics, and the numbers were great, but just let us see it, show it to us. So that would be something to do next. But good job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Even though that's what I do, I elevator pitch, so I'll make sure it's memorable. Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Sanjuan. I am the first in my family to go to grad school. Just about my education. I started taking college courses my freshman year of high school, so I've been in college since I was 13. But that kind of goes into my why. My mom jokes about that I was a kid that taught her the most patience because I was a kid that asked why. So a lot of that went into my love for school and knowledge, so why, so I tend to school for my answers. So I thought honestly I was gonna go into philosophy because that's their big question of why or what or how. And that was just too theoretical, too abstract for me. I needed more concrete answers, so I went into psychology because my big question was why do people act the way they do? So behavior was obviously psychology. So then I realized very quickly, like most of you, I didn't want to go into clinical psychology. I was more of a solve problems, not listen to problems. So then during my undergrad, I got involved with an organization on campus, and that honestly taught me a lot about organizational development. When I was president of the organization, I recruited the largest class, so I could see how quickly things can grow. And it also interested me in leadership development because I was very shy. I wasn't the type that was a leader, and during my time, I learned how to become a leader, and I was teaching others to become leaders as well. So I was interested in how I could do that elsewhere with others. So with my job I had previously, I was the student organization leadership development assistant, and that also gave me a lot of opportunity to do research, present workshops for students on campus. and kind of led me to where I am today. During my undergrad, we didn't have IELTS classes, so I decided to take management as my minor. So that also taught me about leadership. And yeah, that's all I got.
I have one more.
Go for it.
Aria, you want to?
Amy's a pro. Michael can help you, anybody.
I just learned it right now.
Sorry, someone said something else. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Marina. If I sound very shaky, I drink a lot of coffee, so drink espresso. Okay, so for my family, my dad is Brazilian and my mom is Colombian, so coffee is very big in our family. Every single day, my mom and I and my dad, when she gets home from work, we have a coffee and just talk about our day, so it's really nice. This is my older brother Gabriel. He is 3.5 years older than me. He is also my best friend. He graduated in Davis for chemical engineering, and now he's doing his he's doing his thesis right now for quality assurance for his master's program. So here's the pets. I have Toby, he's my cat, he's my little baby, I love him so much. And then we have Abby in the middle, and then Archie, he is turning 15 this year during Christmas. So hopefully he stays a little longer. Some of my hobbies, I really like to puzzle. I think I've spent like hundreds and hundreds of dollars these past couple of years puzzling. That is my most recent puzzle. I also really like going to raves. Before COVID happened, I was going to about 2 or 3 every single month. Meet a lot of interesting people there, but I love them so much. And then I love yoga. I've been doing yoga for since high school. I go to you go to Long Beach. They have free yoga every single day. Yoga on the block, if you ever want to look it up. But it's free. Everyone's super nice. I like to do it on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. School history. I actually started off my freshman year at Northern Arizona University as a biochemistry major. I originally wanted to be a doctor going into school, but then I met a friend who was schizophrenic, and the closer we became, the more intrigued I was with psychology. So I then came back home, graduated UCR with a BA in psych, and here I am now. class of work history. I worked at the Cheesecake Factory for a year. And then I worked at Red Lobster for a year, frankly, a year too long. And then I volunteered for 9 months at Haynes Family of Programs, so it's a family therapy program. I absolutely love volunteering there. I met a lot of amazing people and I learned a lot.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm black, so that's that
Well, I guess.
That's why I go around me and I'm like, well, damn.
I know. It's not work though.
Just don't let you
Okay, I'll try really hard to stand to the side. Unfortunately, I had all my notes on the presenter view. So starting next week, I will try to be able to move around. So the topic for this week's reading was developing IO, as we all know by now. And a few of the articles that we read summarize this growing process of this field, basically how the field of IO psychology has continued to define and clarify itself and set itself apart as a relevant science. And in those articles, the authors tried to offer careful reflection and critique on the trajectory of this growth over these many years. And their goal, I think, was so that they could find the balance between being relevant and accessible and applicable in every field without losing the integrity of biopsychology's own identity as their own, as a scientific, research-based field study. So I picked out like the themes of what I was reading. I'm not sure, again, I wasn't exactly sure what the assignment was, but I feel like it was like you pick that theme and then you kind of can apply it into something that, that's relevant to your life and kind of teach that thing. So the themes that I kind of found after reading all of these articles was that there were these different tensions that were being discussed. So there's the I versus the O, and different articles define the I and the O a little bit differently, but for the most part, it sounded like the I is more research and statistics, testing and validity, and then O is more of the systems and change management. And then, are you a scientist, or a practitioner? Are you an academic? Are you a non-academic? Are these amazing research papers that are being written by the academics accessible to the non-academics who will actually be putting the research to the test? Are you research-based or are you experience-based? And application is necessary, very important to stay relevant, But if business application becomes the main focus, then we blur and basically lose IO psychology as its own distinct field of study. And so there's also that tension between, is this a psychology or should this belong in business fields? Our business majors, I think they said a lot of schools were like with business majors. And I thought these tensions were pretty interesting because really, I think they aren't just an IO problem, but we see these problems in IO because it's ultimately a human problem. There's always a disconnect between theory and putting it to practice. There's always a disconnect between the knowing and the doing, understanding and application, head and real change and faith works. So we see the same tension in our own lives. For example, when we know what's good for us versus actually doing what's good for us and reaping the benefits of the choices that we make. So Paul describes it this way in Romans 7, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically he said, what I will to do that I don't practice, and what I hate that I do. And for to will is present with me, and then how to perform it, I don't know. And then for the good that I want to do, I don't do, and the evil that I don't want to do, I do. And he ends that chapter kind of like, oh, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death. It's kind of like that frustration he was explaining. But then he gives the answer to this particular tension. He ends the chapter with, I thank God in Jesus our Lord. And goes on in chapter 8 to explain that we have a mediator who is Christ to close this gap. And he ends his chapter with, until nothing in this world can separate us from the love of Christ. And then the Holy Spirit now empowers us to live in the Spirit. And this chapter ends with, that's why we are more than conquerors through him who loved us, because we are now empowered to live out or to put to practice or experience the manifestations of the promises of God. So this is when you can close the gap between being a hearer and a doer. And I thought that was just like, oh, this is life applicable to me as a believer, that there's this tension between theory and practice and hearer and doer. And there's always that bringing together of how do we analyze these things and how do we bring it together to live it out in our life. James 1:22-25 says it this way, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in the mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks in the perfect law of liberty and then continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does. And I think this concept ties right back into the last meeting when author Deirdre Knapp offered her conclusion to this issue by stating that we are both scientists and practitioners. Because why should the distinction be made that scientists are academics and that practitioners are non-academics when all practice ought to be founded upon science? And that we are both the I and the O, because ultimately the I is meaningless without the O. And all of this is because we are first and foremost psychologists and not businessmen. So although I know that wasn't a perfect analogy, but ultimately all to say that just as Christian is not a name only, but as you identify as a child of God, and then you receive the promises of God, and then you apply those promises to work in your life, that's when you see real life changing results. So in this field, you recognize your role as a psychologist. You start with your identity. I think it was kind of thing I was reminded of, like when Dr. Fuller, when you kind of explained the general gist of things, you were saying that it is broad because it's kind of dependent on you. So I think it is kind of started. You define, everybody will define it a little differently. So you have to recognize your identity. You start as a psychologist, and then you learn new theories and concepts through scientific research. But only through practical application and successful results do you find your relevance as a field of study. And that is basically the answer to these tensions that are being discussed in the papers. Thanks for the audio.
All right. What do you think you did? What do you think you did well?
I like my presentation. It was great. I think that, well, because the first time I wasn't exactly sure what I was saying, I tend to be more confident if I know what I'm doing. And so, because I'm kind of like trying to figure out, I'm like, am I doing this right? I think I need to be more prepared and have a little bit more of a prepared speech and less reading. Definitely less reading next time.
Feedback from others.
I really enjoyed your content and the way you just like so naturally blended your own ideals and then the readings. I would say that you spoke really fast, but it was very good. So I would just work on with your pacing.
Thank you. That is something I do a lot. I do tend to talk really fast.
I didn't,
Your charisma is fantastic.
And that's something I just like every time I come to talk and like about how you present things. It's clear you're very genuine about it, so that's necessary. I would say, I don't think you ever really looked over here, so I felt like you were speaking to them and not me all the time. So it's something that you put your head on to a little bit more, so everyone feels engaged.
You're a great speaker naturally, so just take center stage, you know, and even if you have to walk right there.
I'll try to bring my notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was here. Thank you, yes. There was someone else.
I was gonna say, I didn't have an issue with your talking, because naturally I'm a super fast talker if I'm in the mood, like, let's go. But I really liked how you brought biblical references into your presentation. Sometimes it slips my mind because I'm in the world so much. I'm like, no, Christ is around us every day, and we're in a Christian-led school, and it's the fact that it's cool to see that you're incorporating the faith into your presentation.
I really appreciate the intellectual approach that you had. It was very cognitive, right? You're a very thoughtful person, and you clearly crafted through lines, right, through this, and made analogies that aren't easy to make, and I appreciate that. It wasn't just a summary of the material, which is great, right? That's never the goal of something that we're all consuming, right? You want to take this, synthesize it, right, into something potent, but then draw some connection that maybe we haven't thought about, or bring in a perspective that wasn't in the reading. And then we have a new learning opportunity. And I think you did that exceedingly well. Appreciate that. Well done. Thank you.
To a box that I connect to here, or is it easier to open it from the Blackboard?
Oh, you have a USB? Yeah, it's down in the bottom there in the cabinet, and the computer's right there.
I was at a wedding one time where at the rehearsal dinner, everybody was talking about the bride and groom and the memories of them, family members and everything. I had to get up to speak right after the 7-year-old niece of the bride had just reminisced about what a great Aunt Rachel was over the years, and so I feel a little bit that way now.
Judy's a little older than 7, but barely.
Thank you.
All right, you all know what we read for this week. The thing that I picked out from the readings as a whole was this idea of the positive identities that we look for in this field and for ourselves as practitioners and scholars in it. So that's the direction we go with this. So from Ryan and Ford, they have these 4 perspectives where they talk about ways that the field is sort of categorized, and also how, again, we ourselves as practitioners and scholars view the work that we do, and view ourselves as practitioners of it. The idea of virtue I thought was interesting. The question of whether the work that we're doing is virtuous in and of itself, and that adds value, that makes us feel good and encourages us, energizes us to do it. I think there's going to be a lot of that in IO that we're going to feel as we go through. But there's also the idea that maybe sometimes the work is so thankless and such a dirty job that we feel virtuous because we're the ones who are willing to step up. Nobody else is going to do it. Here we are. Throw us into the breach. The idea of others evaluating the field, evaluating us as the people who do it, so to speak. How do we make sure that we have a positive image for IO overall? How do we project a positive image to our clients, coworkers, the people that we interface with, particularly on the job? And then also, how do we evaluate ourselves? Again, as practitioners of this and scholars of this work. Just an idea of keeping your own self-image positive and keeping what you do and why in mind. And then the idea of adaptation, adaptive development, as they put it. Feels stronger when it's willing to let go of older, maybe even obsolescent ideas and practices, and to examine and validate and to embrace new ideas and practices. I think that's a sign of a mature field and mature practitioners of it, that they're able to do that. Sometimes it requires taking your ego out if you're attached to one viewpoint, and maybe being proven wrong that some new idea is better than what you've been holding to for a long time. And then finally, the structural perspective. Maintaining a balance between those two sides, the science and the practical sides, like several of you have already mentioned. I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. But just the fact that there is that balance, that both sides have a place, both sides are accepted and valuable, I think gives the field a better perception from the outside. Again, that it's not just all going in one direction. What I thought of in relation to these 4 perspectives, a couple of different concepts that I'm just going to run through in the next few slides. The idea of relevance, I thought tied in, maybe just a rephrasing of some of what the perspectives say, but particularly perspectives in terms of getting people to see the field positively. If we see that as relevant, then I think we're a long ways towards being viewed positively. Much more likely to get your foot in the door or get an answer to that phone call if people in business see what we do as relevant to what they do. And then adaptation as well. The ideas of maintaining strong connections to academics, again, we've talked about that a little bit tonight, and to strengthen that scientist and practitioner model. Again, both sides are important and they support each other. So there's the tension, but in this case, the tension is actually contributing to the field, to the field's strength. The academics inform the practices validate what's coming out of the schools, but they also challenge what the theory is and provide new avenues that need to be examined, new opportunities for research based on what happens when you do start to apply these ideas. They're not always going to work the way that we expect them to, and that gives us new opportunities for study. So how do we show competence as practitioners, as scholars? Again, this goes to the adaptability. If I can respond to changing conditions and incorporate what's happening in the actual real world on the job with the clients that I have, and I can pivot from what we thought we were doing into what's going to address their needs best. I think that, again, is going to lead to a better perception for ourselves as the IO, as the faces of IO, and then as the field of the field as a whole. And by stating the apparent contradiction between the study and practice aspects, here's where the tension of it comes in, where they do push and pull against each other. The fact that we tolerate and even embrace that within the field, I think is good. You know, we talk about politics, we got two sides that are bashing heads, but I think that's a much better way than to have a single party that was in charge of everything all the time. Everybody gets to be heard, half of us are satisfied, and I think that's better than just one set of ideas being in charge. So finally, communication. What a lot of this came down to for me was the way it related to the informal networks that we talked about, that we form in work with our acquaintances. And I thought that Cassio Aquinas here, yes, it's a secondary citation. I'm sorry, Dr. Iverson just told us not to do that the other night, but in my defense, this was a paper that was about other papers. But I won't do it again. So they cite the three-pronged approach to IO science and practice. You can read them there on the screen, but working with issues that are important, measuring important outcomes, and sharing knowledge effectively. To me, that felt a lot like being relevant and adaptable, demonstrating the competence, and providing useful information, useful solutions. And then those informal networks at the end, the communication piece. We talked about Cialdini the other night, those of you who were in the Monday night class, and that whole idea of liking, and you're going to listen to people who are similar, who perceive as similar, who you already have some trust built up with. That quote there about engineering, software engineers, you trust coworkers and or friends that you've already got an established relationship with. If they're hearing that, hey, these IO folks came in and they really helped us out with XYZ situation, that goes a lot further. That referral is really the best that we can get. That word of mouth is going to mean a lot more than any write-up in a professional journal or anything we can stick on a billboard. So the more that we can encourage our clients to tell others when we're done, and to express their satisfaction to their own networks, I think is going to help us and the field overall. That's all I've got. Thanks.
All right. What do you think you did well, Mark?
I didn't fall down.
That's good. That's a win.
Yeah. I actually remembered most of what I wanted to say.